We shared yesterday, and we're just going to kind of update you what the focus of this day is, and it's a vision of St. John Bosco that he had on May 30th, 1862. And you've seen paintings. Everybody must have seen the paintings.
Many Faces of Mary. Do you have that here?
If somebody gets a hold of our book, The Many Faces of Mary, it's in the very front of the book. But you see the two great pillars. One pillar on top of which is the Eucharist, the other great pillar, smaller, on top of which is Our Lady of Help, and in the middle, the ship of the church, Our Lady Help of Christians. Right. In the middle is the ship of the church with the Pope trying to anchor the ship of the church in between the two great strengths of our church, the body of Christ in the Eucharist, the Mother of Christ, and Our Lady. And that's what we're going to share with you today. In that order is the body of Christ, the power of Jesus in the Eucharist and the Eucharistic miracles that he's given us down through the ages. The Mother of Christ, Our Lady, in her apparitions, in her walk to the cross. And the Church of Christ in our Vicar.
Now, there was not just one ship. That was the big one. The big one was the ship that the Pope was on, that he was trying to anchor to the two great pillars. And those pillars just stood there like this. It was a tremendous storm.
Well, but this is it. Later when you go inside, take a look at page 1 of the book, and it shares, you've all seen this painting of the vision of Don Bosco.
But there were little ships. Some were attacking the big ship. And that's our church. The saints, St. Catherine of Siena referred to the ship, the church, as the ship that was crushing her. The pain she had because of the schism and the disturbance in the church. It was crushing her. So there's that big ship, and then there's these little ships. Some of them are attacking the church, and others are fighting those attacking them.
They're defending the church.
As those little ships are hitting that big ship with cannonballs and making a big hole, guess what would happen? A wind would come.
Tremendous wind would come.
What's wrong? It's too close? A wind would come, a tremendous wind, and it would close the hole. Okay, everybody.
What is that wind?
Who is the wind?
Who is the wind?
I can't hear you. You got it. Wow, we got a good group.
They're good. This is a good group.
Who are the little ships? Are we not the little ships? Are those who are attacking our church today, are they not the enemy little ships? You got it. And you know, the crazy thing is, they look pretty much the same. The only time you know there's a difference is whether they're attacking or defending. But you look on the painting, they're not identifiable. And isn't that what has been happening for 2,000 years? Haven't good people, holy people, turned against Mother Church? And when you are disobedient, nothing good comes of it. Don't we know that in our own lives?
And the other thing about that painting and about our life is that the enemy ships are in the minority. They're not the majority. They have never been the majority.
Did you know that?
All these people that are making all these changes in your church today are the minority.
Did you know that?
They are not the majority. We are the majority. The only thing is that they are special interest, loudmouth minorities, and we are quiet, non-involved majorities. So we are like cattle, and we go along with what this special interest minority wants, and then we complain. Oh God, what have they done to our church?
How did it happen? You know, Cleveland, and we're not just saying that, I think you know us better than that. If we had to give it to you between the eyes, you'd get it.
And we may before the day's out.
But Cleveland is a very special place. I can't understand it, I can't touch it yet, but Cleveland is a very sanctified area. One of the messages that we have been spreading since the conference in Cleveland was this. So I'd like to share it with you. We were backstage, and the people of the conference are so gracious. They were preparing a buffet for us, and so we had already spoken, and I believe we had.
No,
we hadn't spoken
our
yet.
kids, we had to relieve our young people because they were taking care of the book table, and so we went up first to be served, and then we were going to go back, and then they could come and eat.
So this young man turned to us, and he said, "Are you a priest?" to me. And I said, "Well," I said, "it's very difficult." I said, "First of all, I'm Catholic. Second, I'm a woman. And third, I'm married. 3 strikes, you're out. I can't be a priest." And he said, and please believe me. See, don't judge that they're being argumentative and attacking. I've done that for too many years. Don't judge that. Be very open.
He really believed what he was saying.
He said, but the majority of Catholics want women priests and married priests. Just as he said that, there was this priest who had just finished speaking, and you heard a roar.
On the monitors, the TV monitors.
They were roaring. I mean, they were just acclaiming what he was talking about. And he was talking about church. And I turned to him and I said, there is the majority. And they don't want women priests, and they don't want married priests. You are the majority.
And don't you forget it.
You are the majority. You are the majority.
And don't let anybody take your church away from you.
And don't let anyone change your church. How many converts are there in here? Raise your hands. Well, let me tell you. Try to take their church, right? Try to change their church, right? You'll have somebody duking it out with you. We are called, every one of us. I am a convert. I was born in the church, and I left the church. But when I came back, there is nothing in this world you can threaten me with to take me away from my church or to take my church away from me. That's what it means to have the church taken away from you. That's what it means to know the difference, isn't it? Isn't it? Those of us who as adults have accepted this church, we have accepted it with the heart and the mind of adults. We know the treasure that we have. We know who reigns in our church. Bob and I, when we were preparing the book Scandal of the Cross and its Triumph, I'd had a word in the Blessed Sacrament Chapel. It always happens in the Blessed Sacrament Chapel or during the consecration. Every book of ours was born always in the presence of God. Think about that the next time you sit when he's present on this altar. Think about it. Think about it the next time when during consecration you're standing instead of on your knees. Think about it, because he is the power in our life and there is none other. But the word that he gave us was, tell my children I grieve until they are united once more. What did that mean? We've got to write about the Reformation. That's what I thought. So I go right into Luther. Start with Luther. And you know what he did? He took my Bob and he brought my Bob to New Age today. That was strange.
For the Reformation.
And then he took me and he said, talk about when I walked the earth. When you walked the earth? And I found myself beginning at the beginning. And you know what Bob and I discovered as he started from the end?
I started from 1990 through 93. Penny started from the first century. We met in the middle somewhere. that there is nothing new. Everything goes back to that Garden of Eden, when the serpent said to Eve, God knows God is a liar.
He called God a liar. The father of lies called your God a liar.
Said God knows that if you eat this fruit, you will become as intelligent as he. You'll have all the powers that he has. You will never die. This is New Age. This is pantheism.
Isn't it?
It started in the Garden of Eden. It has been up and down and up and down and up and down until it came out last week in this 2-hour multicolor special on NBC. And all they talked about was what was talked about in the Garden of Eden thousands of years ago. New packaging, new spokesman, but basically the same message, that you are God. You can be God. Mother Angelica has a few cute words to say about that. She says, when I look at you, it's not awesome.
Awesome.
I have a tendency to say, gee, he's starting to lose his hair. She's getting a little fat. There's a lot of lines around her face. I'm not awe-inspired when I look at you. But when I look at him in the tabernacle, when I look at Jesus, it's awesome.
Awesome.
So if we had to be gods, what a disappointment it would be, because there's nothing there to excite us as it is with Jesus.
Those of us who have been familiar with other religions, and I was brought up, you know, my father brought us to church. No matter what church it was, he brought us to church. So I think that's as close to being a Protestant as you can be, you know, Christian, right? And there was a horizontal love in every one of these churches that was really special. And there is, make no mistake about it. There is this fellowship and horizontal love.
And they're beautiful.
Love. And it's beautiful. But you know, that is human. What do you do when this person you look up to, who you have judged is so Christian,
so godlike,
you hear her lose her temper on the phone? You hear her, you watch her cut somebody off as she goes out the parking lot? You need her, and she can't give you the time. She betrays a confidence. If this is your God, what do you have? I have no earthly gods. I have one God, and he's going to come to life this evening.
We got a little off the subject. We have a schedule here. And we really are supposed to be working.
But
we have a plan.
We have a plan. But the only thing I want to say to you is, you can't shut her up.
When we're on Mother Angelica, I got 2 Italians, one on either side of me. I don't stand a chance.
He's going straight up. Do you know that one conference, is that better, Precious? You know, one conference, I lost my voice. And Bob said, well, here's where I have to do the conference by myself.
It was so neat.
But I was going like this. But, you know, you hear about the Scandinavian countries. That's just the last thought I want to leave with you on that subject. The Scandinavian countries. They were the strongest Catholics in Europe.
They had no desire to lose the Catholic Church or to leave the Catholic Church.
None at all. And a handful, with self-interest, robbed them of their church. And you know what the saddest thing was? They didn't even know it was happening to them. They didn't know that they were being robbed of their church. And today, there is no God at all in the Scandinavian countries. Can we allow that to happen to our beautiful country? Can we?
You know, Luther never left the Catholic Church. Luther was excommunicated, but he never was a different
officially
religion. He never started a new religion. Calvin, who followed him actually started the new Protestant religion. Luther just, he dissented from the church.
He tore it apart.
And he had followers.
From inside.
He had many, many followers. And Brother Joseph once asked us, when did these people finally become aware that they were no longer Catholic? When? You know, his mother, when she died, Martin Luther's mother died a Catholic. She did not go over to any other religion.
When did they discover?
When did they discover they were no longer Catholics? Because they weren't. They were following this sect that had started because of an excommunicated priest, but they didn't know they weren't Catholics anymore. And the question is here, when do we know that we're not Catholics anymore? When our church is taken away from us and we're following something that we don't believe in and we didn't know anything about, and all of a sudden, we're not Catholic anymore.
So today, this weekend, we're going to try to learn what it is to be Catholic. You have to know all the attacks that have been leveled against your church right from the beginning. You have to be armed with all the councils that were called, that put down a heresy. And listen to me, no matter what anybody tells you, when a heresy has been condemned by a council, no council ever overturned that.
It doesn't get uncondemned.
Okay?
No council has ever negated anything of a previous council. So, and all the councils that have ever been formed were formed to fight and condemn heresies that have crept up.
And so what you're hearing in many churches today are old heresies that have been condemned. So whoever tells you this is going against the faith and cannot call themselves Catholic teachers. Please learn so that when you hear these things, you can arm yourself, you can help other people and say, wait a minute, what Father just said, what Sister just said is not Catholic teaching. It was condemned by the Nicene Creed. It was condemned by this creed. You must be armed, okay? All right. No matter what we talk about, we're always going to come back to the Eucharist.
Back to the Eucharist. For a kid with a cold, you're doing pretty good. We were going to talk a little bit about this up front. We're going right to the book, John 6:51. We're going to share with you the words of Jesus. He said, I myself am the living bread come down from heaven. If anyone eats this bread, he shall live forever. The bread I will give is my flesh for the life of the world. It is not a symbol. It is my flesh for the life of the world. At this the Jews quarreled among themselves, saying, how can he give us his flesh to eat? Thereupon Jesus said to them, let me solemnly assure you, if you do not eat the flesh of the Son of Man or drink his blood, you have no life in you. Now we have to preface what happened here. We have to go one day before. Jesus had anywhere from 5,000 to 15,000 people up on the mountain. And he would always take people up on the mountain because it's closest to God. And he shared with these people for days. It seemed like it was forever, but they were so excited. They would ask him questions. He would give them answers. We call these the Beatitudes. He had them at the tips of his fingers. They were just listening to every word he said to them. And at one point, the apostles said, we've got to let these people go into the towns and villages and get some food. They haven't eaten for days. And he said, you feed them.
You feed them.
And especially Judas got very bent out of shape on that one. How can we feed them? It would take 300 days' wages, a year's salary, just to give them bread and a couple of pieces of fish.
But there was a little boy, always the children. Isn't that who Mother Mary appears to? Innocent children or childlike people like Juan Diego. And this little boy came up and he said, here, Master, this is all I have, but it's yours.
He didn't say, I have 5 fish or 5 loaves of bread and 2
fish.
2 fish. He didn't say, let's split this, you and I, and if there's any left over, we can give it to the rest of them.
Just make sure I have enough for me.
I have my lunch here, and you can have some. He said, this is all that I've had.
All yours.
Use it.
And you know, I can just picture the apostles. They thought, isn't he cute? I mean, how can you feed anywhere from 5,000 to 15,000 people? Don't we have that throughout the church? That's called rationalism. It's not rational, right? Doesn't make sense, does it?
They said it was, how many Jesus can there possibly be?
Huh? How can that happen?
In that little
Still
host,
looks like a
how many
cookie.
Jesus can there be?
Okay? And so Jesus blessed what the child brought. Just as Jesus blesses your faith that you bring up to him at the altar, your belief that he's really present. Jesus blessed that, and he multiplied it to such a degree that everyone had their fill. And there were 12 baskets filled, left over for more. Because of one child's abandonment, one child's faith, Jesus worked with that. But Jesus is the one. All the faith in the world won't get you across the street unless Jesus blesses that faith, right?
At this point, almost all of his followers left him. Because you've got to understand, to give them credit, the Hebrew laws forbid the Jews from eating blood of an animal.
Did you know that?
It's against the Mosaic law. Whenever they eat a piece of beef, it's got to be so well done it's like leather before you can eat it.
First it has to be soaked,
boiled.
So there's no blood, or it has to be salted. These are the kosher laws that have been passed down by Moses. And they're very strict about that when they're Orthodox. Now what this Nazarene, he's no longer possibly the Messiah,
he's not
or
the one
master,
who does all
or
these
rabbi.
miracles.
He's that kid from Nazareth. What good could come out of Nazareth? What he's proposing is they eat his flesh, drink his blood.
So this great miracle worker of yesterday up on the mountain is now the Nazarene.
Also, there was another problem. They were practicing cannibalism. Don't we have a problem? Doesn't the enemy take our beautiful faith and distort it and warp it to suit himself? Well, they're thinking to themselves, cannibalism. Now, Jesus knew the Mosaic laws, didn't he? Aren't we in agreement? He referred to the word. He knew the word. He'd been taught the word right from his mother's lap. Do you remember when she finds him in the temple? He's preaching, he's teaching, and they are amazed at the wisdom of this child. Now he's a young man. He knows the law. He knows what they're thinking. Why doesn't he say, wait a minute, come back? You didn't think I meant really.
Now my wife, if we were to say something, and all of a sudden you people would just get up and start walking away, she would run to the door and throw her body in front of the door to block you so that you would not leave. And Jesus saw virtually all his followers get up, turn around, and leave.
Can you imagine that?
Now wouldn't he, if it was a symbol, wouldn't he have said, now wait a minute, you misunderstood me. I didn't mean it the way it sounded. It was semantics. It's only a symbol. I didn't mean eat my body and drink my blood. But he didn't say that. He watched them leave.